y'all want this party started right? I don't know why that's the song that comes in my head when I start stuff. And I literally don't know much more than just that part of the song. Set it up, I suggest you. Anyway, okay. Conscious and unconscious represented here physically by a glacier. So similar to a glacier, there's so much more under the water than what's above the surface, or an iceberg. I don't know if there's much of a difference between the two. Anyway, the unconscious is what we don't know about, we're not aware of, and that's what's represented as under the water. And above the water is what we can see, what we're aware of. So the unconscious, according to the course's curriculum, is considered the cause, and it is guilt. So in our unconscious mind, we hold guilt, and then consciously we're aware of that guilt in a very small degree through pain, problems, and lack of peace. And so if we drill down a bit further, that guilt is connected to, and sets the belief in guilt, and this is all at the level of the mind, sets then an expectation of some kind of punishment or feeling deserving of punishment. And with punishment comes suffering. And with unconscious guilt and anything that's in the unconscious, we project it outward onto other people, onto other things, onto our 3D world reality. So consciously, we're projecting this guilt. And like I said, we experience it as pain, and that could be emotional pain, physical pain, problems, lack of peace. We can project that guilt onto our body and have body issues. We could have it in the form of challenging relationships, and not just with people. It could be a relationship with money or other types of relationships, and emotional upset. So what a miracle does. Let's see, does anyone mind reading?
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yes.
So I think I understand, just from a, from a psychological and from a course perspective, what projection is.
Mhm.
Would you mind? I'd love to hear from your experience and knowledge. How does that occur? Is it like an energy? What is that?
So that's a good question. It's, to do it justice, it will take more time than we have right now. And in fact, basically there's going to be a miracles workshop part 2, because I couldn't get all the content in here in a way that would be digestible and easy to track. But basically the way the course describes it is projection. So this is the analogy. When you dream, your eyes are closed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're having an outer experience that seems real, that something is happening.
Right.
That is an example of projection. So one, the whole 3D hologram, and in this case, in your dream, is a projection, but also what can be a projection are the unconscious things that we don't like about ourselves onto other people. And it can be both a positive or a negative projection.
Right.
So I know that I'm just scratching the surface a little bit, but basically it's like what Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world,
mm-hmm.
which suggests that the world, and this is also in quantum physics, that the
mm-hmm.
world is not operating separate from you, that you are a part of the world, and the observer changes the observed.
I see. Yes. It changes the properties of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's a principle of projection.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's good to chew on that.
Yes, it's a lot, because that's normally not how we see the world. And I just want to say that an example of that also is how we experience our day to day. So, if you're in a good mood and somebody drives like you don't like somebody tailgating, and somebody's tailgating you, like, oh, it may not disturb your peace because you're already in good spirits and everything. But if you're like already feeling angry and frazzled and somebody tailgates on you, and you get upset,
mm-hmm.
and you project onto them. See, that also goes back where the outer didn't change. Somebody is tailgating. One time it disturbs your peace, and one time it doesn't. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Right.
part of
Oh,
what
I see.
course. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Where the outer thing didn't change, somebody's tailgating, but your inner response changed.
Mhm,
And that's
mhm.
what the course is getting us to, is that our unconscious, when people are upset about tweets, it's not really the tweets that they're upset about. We just think that that's what it is.
I see. Yeah, it's just illuminating what's already in there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So
Thank
thank
you.
you. That was a good question. So let's go to what the miracle does. So this is text chapter 13, section, what is that? 1, paragraph 1. And it's right at the bottom of the screen. For sake of time, I'll read this one out loud, but there'll be more reading to come, just to give you a heads up. So earlier, I said that the Holy Spirit shares the goal of all good teachers, whose ultimate aim is to make themselves unnecessary by teaching their pupils all they know. The Holy Spirit wants only this: for sharing the Father's love for his Son, he seeks to remove all guilt from his mind, that he may remember his Father in peace. Peace and guilt are antithetical, and the Father can be remembered only in peace. Love and guilt cannot coexist, and to accept one is to deny the other. Guilt hides Christ from your sight, for it is the denial of the blamelessness of God's Son. All right, so this should look familiar. So similar to the iceberg imagery we saw earlier, this is what we can see above the ground. We got this lone dandelion in our lovely lawn that has been well manicured, fertilized and everything, right? We don't want dandelions. And so if we don't know any better, what do we normally do? We just cut off the stem, boom, there goes the dandelion, my problem is solved. Or is it? You all know this part, right? Because under the surface, similar to what we talked about with the unconscious guilt, under the surface is the cause of what we're seeing above the ground, which are the roots. If we don't get at the root of something, then that means that dandelion is going to grow back. So similarly, what we end up doing, because we don't know about the guilt because it's unconscious, what we spend so much time doing is cutting at the dandelion above the ground. And so if it's a body issue, we get plastic surgery, we lose weight, we change our diet, we do all these different things to try to change the way we feel about our bodies, when what the feeling is, or the body issue, is really caused by the unconscious guilt. Pain, lack of peace, all of that stuff. So we end up staying on the surface of things, but not going down to the cause, which is what it says, going back to what we read earlier, what I read earlier, is that that's what the miracle's aim, right? Is to remove our unconscious guilt. It doesn't say unconscious, but to remove our guilt. So if we don't remove it and we keep staying at this conscious level of cutting the stem of the dandelions, then what happens over time? We end up getting a lawn that looks like this, because we haven't gotten to the root cause of the issue. So how does this take shape in our lives? We quit one job because the job is terrible and we're unhappy there. And then we take on another job. Or what's represented here is like dating relationships, where we break up with this guy, and then we meet a different guy, but he's really the same guy, meaning that the content and whatever the issues are come up eventually again. And then we break up with him, and it's like, well, maybe it's just the young guys. Let me try an older guy. So we got this older guy in the mix. Same thing happens. Then let me change and date somebody of a different ethnicity. So it's still trying to solve the problem at the effect level and not going to the cause, and the cause again being the unconscious guilt, or in this analogy with the dandelion, digging up the roots. Now, I want to be very clear that you can apply and use the miracle, and that doesn't mean you stay in the job either. But what the invitation is to realize that changing the job isn't going to address the core and the cause of the issue. And so you can address, of course, in your mind, the cause, and still on the outward part, right, being guided by the Holy Spirit, leave the job, leave the relationship, or stay, one or the other. But I want to be clear that just because you do this work doesn't mean that you have to stay in that situation.
I think
So-
I thought I would just interject really quick because I
Yeah.
thought about this the last time you shared this slide. But I think it was in the chorus, or perhaps it was with Ken Wapnick, who said that when these dandelions, the time between the dandelions is used by the ego to its advantage because you forget
Yeah.
the similarities. So,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And hopefully you were, from the homework last week, were able to distill and start seeing, wow, there's some patterns here that maybe
Yeah.
I didn't see before. Because right when we cut the dandelion in this bottom left corner, it doesn't grow back 5 seconds later, right? Like it takes
Right.
time.
Right.
So similar, like you're saying about this pattern, that we might not even recognize it because it might be 3 years later or sometime later we don't even see that it's the same sauce, in a different package.
Yeah. It was just the time issue. It's the construct of it being of the ego is also kind of genius in a way.
Yes.
So
Yes.
duped.
You said you feel duped.
Yeah, we're duped.
Right. And I love, though, that you brought up time, because that's exactly what I was going to go into with this slide. So that's perfect. And that is, how much time, if we look at the bottom left picture, the dandelion, and the middle picture, if we look at time from that perspective of trying to remedy it, right? And this is cutting off the stem or digging up the roots, which is going to take more time?
Mhm. Yeah, obviously the lawn full of dandelions.
No, we haven't even gotten there yet. I'm saying on the short term, on the first immediate sign, right? Of you see the dandelion.
Oh yeah.
What
That's the
takes
boundaries.
longer, cutting the stem or digging at the roots?
Oh, digging at the roots. Obviously.
That's going to take longer, obviously, right? Up front.
Yeah.
However, if we just cut the stem, and going back to how the ego can use the function of time, over the long haul, what's going to take more time?
Every single one of those dandelions has a root.
Yes. So we think we're remedying the problem, cutting the stem, but in the long term, in the long run, it's going to take more time. And that's why, and I'm paraphrasing, that it says a miracle can save you thousands of years. It's either thousands of years or thousands of lifetimes.
Yeah.
Because we keep operating on this level of cutting the stem at the surface. And even though it might take a lifetime digging out the root of something, that can save you comparatively several thousands of years or lifetimes compared to just keep cutting the stem. So it's like, do I want to do the work now or later? But at some point, like it says in the introduction, it's a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. At some point, we're going to have to opt in to dig at the roots.